The people are very angry because they have been victims of flooding for all these years. And flooding has made their lives so difficult.
The streets of Manila are once again filled with voices of anger, frustration, and defiance. Thousands of protesters, young and old, have gathered under the scorching sun, fists raised, demanding accountability from their leaders. Their chants echo through the capital, an outcry against corruption, betrayal, and a system that has failed them for decades. This is not just another protest. This is a cry for justice, a stand against the abuse of power, and a battle for the future of the Philippines. For weeks, stories of fraudulent flood control projects have dominated the headlines. These projects, meant to protect vulnerable communities from devastating floods, were funded with taxpayers' money. Billions of pesos were poured into these schemes with the promise of saving lives and strengthening the country's infrastructure. But what was revealed instead was shocking. Money siphoned off, ghost projects launched, and corrupt politicians enriching themselves while ordinary citizens remained at risk. Entire neighborhoods still drown during typhoons. Families lose their homes every year. Crops are destroyed, livelihoods washed away. And yet, officials line their pockets while pretending to safeguard the people. This scandal has cut deep because it touches not only money, but survival itself. The anger in the streets is about more than one scandal. It is about a long history of corruption in the Philippines, decades of false promises, stolen funds, and public suffering. Protesters hold up placards with bold words, "Ibagsak," bring them down. Others demand resignations, accountability, and transparency. Organizations like Gabriela, student groups, labor unions, and community activists are leading the charge, uniting different voices under one cause: to end the culture of impunity. What makes this protest different is its sheer intensity. The scandal has awakened something raw among the people. Corruption has always been a shadow in Philippine politics, but this time, the betrayal feels even sharper. Flood control is not just infrastructure, it's survival against typhoons, rising seas, and climate change. For many, this feels like a crime against the nation itself. But the streets are not only filled with chants and placards. In Manila, tension has escalated as some demonstrators clashed with police. Riot shields met raised fists, tear gas clouded the air, and sirens pierced through the voices of the people. The authorities say they are keeping order, but critics argue this is yet another attempt to silence dissent. Yet even as confrontations intensify, the people remain. They refuse to leave. They refuse to be silenced. History shows that in the Philippines, protests are never just noise. They can spark revolutions, bring down dictators, and shift the course of the nation. To understand the weight of this moment, we must look back. The Philippines has a long, painful history with corruption. From the Marcos dictatorship, when billions were stolen from the people, to more recent administrations plagued by scandals, corruption has been a constant enemy. It is a disease eating away at progress, draining public trust, and preventing the nation from achieving its true potential. Flood control is only the latest symbol of this betrayal. It represents how corruption is not just about numbers on a balance sheet. It is about lives lost because funds never reached their destination. It is about farmers who cannot harvest, children who cannot go to school because their homes are underwater, and communities left defenseless against disasters. The government, of course, is now scrambling. Officials have promised investigations, audits, and accountability, but the people have heard this before. Every scandal comes with the same script: denials, half-hearted apologies, endless investigations that lead nowhere. Meanwhile, the corrupt continue their business, untouched, untouchable. This time, the protesters say, enough is enough. They demand not just investigations, but real consequences. Jail time for those responsible, recovery of stolen funds, systemic reforms that will prevent such scandals from happening again. But here lies the deeper question. Can the Philippines truly break free from this cycle? Or is corruption so deeply rooted that every protest, no matter how massive, will eventually fade into silence? History suggests that change is possible, but only when the people refuse to give up. The fall of Marcos in 1986 was not achieved through silence. It was achieved through the people power revolution, when millions filled the streets, demanding democracy and justice. That same spirit now lingers in the chants of today's protesters. Beyond the protests, the scandal has sparked debates about governance, transparency, and accountability. Experts warn that unless systemic reforms are introduced, corruption will continue to thrive. Whistleblower protections, stronger auditing systems, digital transparency tools, and independent oversight are urgently needed. Without them, flood control today will become healthcare tomorrow, education next week, and defense the month after. Corruption spreads like fire, consuming every corner it touches. The protesters know this. That is why their fight is not just about flood control. It is about demanding a system that serves the people, not the pockets of the powerful. The international community is also watching. Corruption scandals weaken investor confidence, damage the nation's reputation, and discourage global partnerships. At a time when the Philippines is striving to position itself as a rising economy in Southeast Asia, scandals like these undermine progress. But for ordinary Filipinos, the concern is not about investors or global reputation. It is about the simple dignity of knowing that their taxes are being used for their welfare, not stolen by officials. It is about the right to live in safe communities, to trust their leaders, and to have hope in their future. As the protests continue, the question remains: what happens next? Will the government respond with meaningful reforms? Or will it double down on repression, hoping to silence the people until the anger fades? One thing is clear. The people are no longer afraid. They are willing to clash with police, to stand under the burning sun, to risk arrest, because they know the price of silence is far greater. The price of silence is more corruption, more poverty, more suffering. This moment in Philippine history is pivotal. It could mark the beginning of deeper change, a turning point where the people's outrage forces the system to evolve. Or it could become yet another missed opportunity, buried under political maneuvering and forgotten scandals. But the people are determined not to let that happen. Their voices are growing louder, their numbers stronger, and their message clearer. They will not tolerate betrayal any longer. So as we watch the streets of Manila swell with protesters, as chants of Ibagsak shake the air, and as corrupt politicians scramble to save their careers, one truth shines through. The fight for justice in the Philippines is far from over. This is not just about flood control. This is not just about one scandal. This is about the soul of a nation, whether it will remain trapped in cycles of corruption or whether the people will rise and demand the Philippines their children deserve. The choice, ultimately, lies not in the halls of power, but in the streets where the people stand united. Because history has shown again and again that when the Filipino people rise, no power, no matter how corrupt, no matter how entrenched, can stand in their way. The protests in Manila are more than just a reaction to one scandal. They represent the deep frustration of a people who have lived through cycles of broken promises and systemic betrayal. Every banner raised, every chant shouted, every clash with riot police is a reminder that the people of the Philippines are awake, alert, and no longer willing to remain silent in the face of corruption. This movement is not isolated to Manila. It spreads through the provinces, where communities most affected by floods know firsthand what is at stake. For them, corruption is not abstract. It's the difference between a safe home and a destroyed one, between a harvest and hunger, between life and death when the storms come. Their voices add urgency to the protests, grounding the anger in lived reality. What makes this moment historic is the unity it has inspired. Students, workers, farmers, women's groups, and activists are marching side by side, transcending political divides to focus on one demand: accountability. This unity is powerful because it reminds corrupt leaders that the people, when united, hold more strength than any political dynasty. But there is also risk. History shows that powerful institutions do not give up easily. Politicians accused of corruption may fight back with propaganda, intimidation, or further repression. Already, we see signs of this: police crackdowns, attempts to discredit protesters, and promises of investigations meant only to buy time. The people will have to remain vigilant because the system is designed to protect itself. Still, hope lies in persistence. True change has always been born out of relentless struggle. The People Power Revolution, the ousting of corrupt leaders in the past, the victories of grassroots movements, all of these remind us that the Filipino people are capable of rewriting their destiny when they refuse to give up. So, what will the legacy of these protests be? That depends on whether the outrage in the streets can transform into long-term reform, whether leaders will be held accountable, and whether ordinary Filipinos continue to demand transparency beyond the headlines. One thing, however, is undeniable: the world is watching, and more importantly, the nation is watching itself, recognizing its own power. The sight of thousands standing firm in Manila is proof that the spirit of resistance lives on. The Philippines is at a crossroads. Either it continues down a path of corruption and betrayal, or it seizes this moment to build a future where leaders are servants of the people, not thieves of the treasury. The people have spoken. The question now is whether the government will listen, or whether the people will force them to.